Bless you.
And we are supposed to be live now, according to that stuff. Let's see how it goes.
It says live.
It says live. Hey, this is the first time we're doing this. Like,
Yes.
without we don't have, what is it? The safety flotation devices.
No, yeah, we don't have anything that
No guardrails.
Yeah, we
No
don't
bumpers,
have a run.
no bumpers like in bowling. I score like
can-
a straight 300 when I got bumpers in bowling.
I can see we're live.
For the last 30 seconds, we're live. We're good to go.
Yeah. Hello, people. So yeah, we miss Ron. Ron Quake was our great organizer. He had all these tips on the streaming stuff, and we had to do it by ourselves. And believe it or not, as much used to technology and deeply into it every day, setting up a live show, organizing the event, and all that stuff can be quite challenging, even if it's pretty basic. So I'm happy we're all there today, and I'm happy we join you, and that Rod and Brad could make it. Hello, guys. Nice to see you. Been a while.
Hello. Yes, it has been.
Yes.
It's been crazy busy. Yeah, it's not supposed to be as busy as it is, but it has been.
I agree, yeah, and I'm thankful you say that, because I was feeling I was the only one, being overwhelmed lately. Like last 2 weeks been pretty intense, and I'm glad to see that that's kind of November effect or something like that.
I think it's also the industry just heating up. It's just the snowball's getting bigger, and we got to find a way to kind of reduce the size of the snowball, because it's just, as I said, from my side, it's getting bigger.
Yeah, I would agree, Rod. It is, and maybe it's that people are finally taking notice, or people are just freaking out that bad things are continuing to happen. And we're out there, the three of us and many of our other fellow colleagues in this business, we're out there banging the drum, and it feels like sometimes we're just banging the drum in the middle of a forest and nobody's actually hearing it.
Yes.
Yeah, true. And we got some sound also. We saw in the news that some gang got arrested, like a club around somewhere, and
Club
some
Rebel.
other
Club Rebel. Awesome.
Rebel affiliates and stuff.
Yeah.
But like their stuff is still up. So I don't know which one on the Rebel side they got, but
probably not the higher level operators, right? Probably, if I was a bad guy, right, I'd have people around me that I could just say, yeah, arrest that guy, and they get burned, and I go on to my next crew. And I think, when you think about the organized cyber criminal element that's out there, they haven't. It's not that they haven't thought about that. They know what they're doing. They know that there's that at points in time they're going to lose bodies to being arrested. Hey, Matt, welcome.
Hi, Matt.
And so we know that they're going to lose bodies and people are going to get arrested. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And they have planned for those contingencies, right? This is
true.
This is nothing surprising to any of us that work in the business. We plan for our own contingencies, right? Well, the bad guys do too, and they probably do it better than we do.
Well,
they do a lot better.
That's why they developed that SaaS model, right? They farm it out.
Yeah, hey, ransomware is a service. It's great, man.
Yeah. They don't have any regulation.
Exactly. They do not have any regulation. They just
unlimited
they don't follow the rules.
Unlimited budget. By the way, you saw there was that 10 million wanted stuff money that you get if you give the head of the network, and finally someone gave the person, and they did recover 3.3 million only out of 10 million gave away.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that's a lose-lose. In a way.
I was reading some Dennis Underwood wrote something today where he was saying people can get this kind of false security when they see this stuff happening, right? So you see this group gets arrested and $6 million is recovered or whatever, but you forget that it's $1 billion industry. So 6 million billion, now what, right? So you're that's like a drop in the bucket when it's all said and done.
No, you're very spot on, Rod. I mean, what comes down to is that they have so many operators out there, right? I mean, this is akin to. So I saw this. So back in the day when we were chasing the last sort of big thing that Anonymous worked on, which was the 2016 Olympics, right? In Brazil, and they did some good stuff, right? And they had basically an army of people out there that would run a Python script to DDoS stuff and that kind of thing. It was pretty fascinating, right? Well, the cyber criminal elements have really taken on that model, right? It's almost a pyramid scheme. They've got a bunch of low-level operators that do stuff, and they got mid-level guys, and they got the guys writing the code, and then they got the people that are really pulling the strings. And we see that we just, what we don't see, right, is the guys pulling the strings, because they're very insulated, right? And so they lose a few $1 million here, a few $1 million there. Stuff gets recovered. Bitcoin wallets get pilfered and returned by the FBI and stuff like that. But in the grand scheme of things, right, they're like, meh, we got more infrastructure over here. We co-opted this. We did that. We don't care. We're just going to move on to the next thing. They expect that infrastructure is going to get burned down, right? They expect
100%.
They know that it's going to get, and so they plan for that. They got the next set of infrastructure, co-opted WordPress sites, whatever it is they're using out there. They've got all of that stuff already in the wings, and they're they've looked at the branches and sequels, if you will, to use the military parlance. 8 branches and sequels down the stream, right? To keep their business up and going. So they got to pay for those Maseratis somehow.
Yeah. And I had some intelligence feed stating that some of these groups were state-sponsored groups, in fact, and financing some kind of dark shadow stuff. So, but that was like European intelligence feed. But I think it's quite interesting, because you know what? After all, what about the country financing their cyber operation through ransomware?
Well, there's that. I mean, that's obviously a thing. But the other thing you to think about with the nation state actors out there, right, is the whole lot of them that turn absolutely $6 trillion and growing, unfortunately. But when you look at it, right, I mean, and again, and just pause on the $6 trillion point, and I appreciate that comment, right? What could we do as a world with $6 trillion?
Yes.
All right, think about that. Think about what could we do as a world of $6 trillion, right? That's crazy, right? Chris Roberts, in one of his more recent posts on LinkedIn, if you follow Chris on LinkedIn, he's a great follow. Posts a lot about his dogs. I love his dogs. They're awesome, right? Is every 11 seconds an organization gets hit with ransomware.
Yes.
Every 11 bloody seconds. Are you kidding me? That is absolutely nuts. But when we go back to thinking about those nation state actors potentially, right, to circle back around real quick, right, it's not so much the state sponsorship of them. It is the turning a blind eye to what's going on. Right.
Yeah,
we see so much of that, right? It's like the countries out there, and y'all know who they are. Y'all can put names to countries there. But they're out there, and they just look the other way, and they don't care. And they're the same thing. We see the same thing in the malicious space, where we deal with URLs and hosted files and stuff like that, where even down to the registrar level of people registering domains. Like Alex, I'll post this in here. Let me see if I got my thing. I'll give this. You can post this for the folks. My organization just released our 2021 trends report. And it's really very, very telling. And one of the big trends that came out of it, right, in both phishing and malicious activities, is that the vast majority of what we see are the big three: .com, .net, and .org, right? So whoever's selling these, these domain names and things like that, right, and all that kind of stuff, or allowing this stuff to happen, right, they're turning a blind eye as well. This is a big problem across the entirety of the industry. It is not a small problem, unfortunately.
No,
but I think
and also,
go ahead, Alex.
Go ahead. Oh, when you think about it, you know why they close high on what's happening in the end. If this is bringing money in the country, and this is being taken mainly as a, let's say, foreign or enemies or not that friendly or allies, why not closing the eyes? Because after all, this is injecting money in the economy. Yes. And nowadays, given the lower and inflation stuff, an extra cash flow in it, even if we don't, even
if it's not legitimate, right?
Yeah, but we can't see it. It's through crypto stuff. We cannot be blamed for letting that money coming in.
Not my fault. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know, but finally we got some more Tesla on the roads.
Well,
I'm not saying that Tesla.
Some of it is actually it is turning a blind eye, and some of it is actually they're doing it on purpose, right? So, and like you look at North Korea and the sanctions against them, et cetera, their ability to use their hackers in house to actually bring money into the country is significant. Iran, same thing. And I'm not saying that all we always talk about nation states and we forget that we're also a nation state and we do some bad stuff as well too. So we can call out China, everybody else, but we also know our folks are doing some stuff as well too, right? So we just need to be spread the blame as wide as possible.
Yeah,
when they're engaged. But yes, some of them are actually doing it to bring revenue into the country, right? And it's known that a lot of ransomware gangs in Eastern Europe aren't attacking Eastern Europe; they're attacking everybody else, but because they've been given the go-ahead to actually do it, right? So that
totally,
yeah,
this is a great point. And actually, I agree. When I say state sponsored, I don't say any state. I mean, it's just same thing on our side too. After all, it would be just not that smart not to take advantage of it. You just cannot admit it, but if they will not do it, why?
yeah.
So that will be it. Yeah. So, but organization should know, because funny thing is, the alert fatigue that we see in the SOC, I think we have the same thing in the news with people. And it's like not trendy anymore, because hacks, it's not maybe people get used to it, they just don't pay attention and ignore the fact. So I think because we in the mainstream media lately, we don't see that much of a warning. No, I've been lucky to speak on a TV news lately. Superstar Alex. So it was a local one.
No, it's good. It's good. We bask in the glow of your amazingness too.
Oh boy, it was so much stress. Anyway, when you see it's a good opportunity to bring some enlightenment to people and trying to speak business to them, not using scaring technique or whatever, but fact. And number are still escalating. It's like, I feel sometimes like, okay, everybody thinks it's okay. We did catch 3 or 4 guys of these gangs, and now we're good. But the rate of the cyber threat is still growing. I mean, organizations still suffer from that. I'm seeing organization being stolen all the time, like business email compromise, CEO stuff, ransomware, leaks, data, fraud, and it's not calming down. And we bring means to that. I mean, we try to raise the maturity of the organization. It's quite challenging, to be honest. Lately, I realized that, speaking about my own experience, I was speaking to a business which is not at all IT, and they are in food distribution. And it was tough to explain that if their email go down or get breached, it will impact the business. But they did not see it as it is. But the fun fact is they are all over the country, and they send work orders through emails. So basically, if email go down, you have no work order. And the lady was nice. And you say, I don't care if it's down. I'm used to work on the side channel. I would send SMS. I would call people. But I don't think they realize how much technology took place in the business as a whole. And and when I spoke about that, I told her, try to bring the quantitative analysis and the qualitative analysis, but not in these words. They're trying to say, okay, that thing is down. See how much it's going to cost, and then they start to realize and say, oh, it's up to you. I'm not forcing you. I'm just telling you. Just count. Basic. Your people don't work. You must pay them. And you pay them to do nothing. So here are the numbers. Because I think it was not crazy expensive subscription. And finally, when she thought about the numbers, she said, no, that's right. I mean, after all, it's worth spending something that would represent 1 hour of downtime to avoid that stuff.
Yeah.
Although not bulletproof, but still.
Well, but again, and the other thing that you can lean on when you think about that, talking with organizations, right, is look at their industry, right, whatever industry vertical they're in. We'll take healthcare, right? In the United States, we know that the HIPAA fines, first one out of the gate, are very, very expensive, and then it compounds, right? And so what you do is you do the math and say, okay, you're an organization, you do X, you get breached, you lose this many records, it equals this many dollars out the door, and the cost of the thing to help better secure your environment is this versus the $10 million in fines you're going to face. What do you want to do? Right? So again, and you got to ask the organization, are you willing to spend the $10 million on the fines? Oh, by the way, that doesn't count all of the, the restoration stuff and the breach mitigation and all the stuff you got to
Oh
do.
yes,
So
yes. All
add
the
another,
extra costs, yeah.
add another $5 million on top of that. But just the fines, if you're willing to pay the fines and not spend, X whatever dollars it is to do some better,
to mitigate it,
introduce, do anything. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Do anything right. Okay, that's your choice, right? But you as the organization have got to make that risk-based decision, that risk-based calculus, right? And understand what the actual dollars, bottom line dollars impact is.
100%.
Yeah, and aside of the value, there is also accountability and responsibility for people, for us, customer users, because after all, it's not only a business data leak; it's all the people that are involved into that. And go ahead, Rod.
And I was going to say, what you're running into is the businesses generally don't understand the processes within the business, right? And so you start at the top, and the folks are like, yeah, stuff happens. And the deeper you get, it's like, well, it happens because I've got a master spreadsheet on my desktop that I use to do this, this, and this. And when you talk to people about, well, do you have backups? Can you recover? Well, Sally's got this master spreadsheet that everything runs through. Right? Or Sally sends email at 5:00 every day for payroll and nobody knows it. Like there's all this stuff that is buried within the organization, and everything runs tickety-boo until it doesn't. Right? And so it's what you ran into is just getting people to go deeper. And I say this without being disparaging. Talk to the people with their hands on the keyboards, right? Understand what they are doing on a day-to-day basis, what processes are crucial to your company. And then from there you can build up how do you protect things. But from the top down, it runs.
Well, and what happens is, and this is where, so I think what we're seeing, across the industry, and we're going to get to talking about, individual stuff here in a minute, because that's super important. As individuals, we obviously, we have our own set of third parties and technologies that we deal with in our home networks, and them smartphone things we carry around and stuff like that, right? And we assume a lot away, and we assume a lot of everything is good with a lot of stuff, and it's really, you really got to think about it before you make those assumptions. You got to, what we do as humans, we do risk calculus on our own. I was actually talking to my grad students last night, and what you're hitting on, Rod, really sort of resonates is larger organizations, right? So think the big dogs, the big banks, the big online retailers, yada yada, all this kind of stuff, right? So all of those folks, right, are getting pretty good at security, right? They are really starting to make, and again, I'm not saying we haven't seen breaches of large scale organizations. Twitch, for example, we've seen that, right? And that was in Amazon's coffers, so that's a whole other story. That was a big organization that got breached, right? So yes, we still see the big breaches, but I would say if you were to go back and look over from the last 5 years ago to say 2020 to today, right? Larger organizations in terms of large scale breaches has started to go down. The trend is down, which is good. But the bad guys, right now, what do they turn? They're just scattershot, shooting at everything. They're just doing targets of opportunity across every single industry vertical, and they're really starting to move down to the mid-sized businesses, to the smaller businesses, because that's where they're finding the holes. Right, they're finding less holes at the top, and they're finding, and if you look at the big dogs are here, medium size and smaller business way out there, right? Well, that's where they're finding the holes, and these are organizations that have never done what you talked about, Rod, which is a business impact analysis, right? Honestly, taking the 3 to 6 months that it takes to actually do one right, and say, hey, how do what are the processes that are important? The email that Sally sends every morning, that if Sally is ill, payroll doesn't go out, right? If Bob's computer dies and he's got the only copy of the spreadsheet on it, right? Guess what? Your business has to recreate all that from scratch, right? And we don't think about that. And many businesses, small to mid-sized businesses, go, but I'm not that. Who cares about me? I don't really have anything of value that anybody wants, which is wrong, right? But it's like, but it goes back to every 11 seconds, an organization gets hit with ransomware.
True, right? Yeah, and we see that when we do assessment to SMBs. I mean, I talk to many like small businesses, like 10, 40, 50 people kind of organization, and basically the IT guy is the accountant. Yeah. And they have these partners, and basically if something happened, they call the partner. So then I ask them, so you have backups? Because we go through the checklist, like the basic stuff. Do we have backups? Say, oh yeah, we have backups. So do you know where your backups are? That's already a tricky one. Do you know what you backup? Not sure. Did you even try to restore? Yeah, and do you know how to restore? Well, if it happens, we ask our partner. But if your partner is not actually watching and testing the restore stuff, that's a tricky one. And I wanted to share that experience. We spoke quickly about it at first. I use I host my stuff, like my blog, my home stuff, my Nextcloud at home.
Yep.
And I killed my Nextcloud. I was attempting to update it, and as a nice IT guy that is comfortable with that stuff, I didn't take a snapshot of the VM before messing with it. Everything I advise, so I ran that update, and it went nuts because my MariaDB was not up to date enough, and I jumped one version. It's a Docker version of it, and it messed the DB. I couldn't go back, so I had to go back to my backups. I have backups, thankfully, and but when I wanted to restore my 1 terabyte backup on my small machine, I mean, it would fail after 8 hours at 34%.
Oh.
So first time I say, okay, issue. So first I spot network driver issue. Network driver issue. The network card will go down and interrupt the stream of the backup. Fail. So I fixed that, and again fail later on, and up to realize that there is like timeout. And my machine on the backup was an old Core 2 Duo stuff, which was just good enough with a couple of 4 terabyte drive. It's home stuff, But you know what? I realized that home stuff is way more mature than many organizations out there. And I fixed it. And I migrate that VM to something bigger and got to restore my stuff. But it shows that if you don't test it, you have no idea it's not working. And on my side, thankfully, Nextcloud just, convenient stuff at home. My wife I use it. So it was fine. It was down for a week, and then I tried the update, and now I have to convert all the database to some new version. It's like taking ages, and the thing is down. So it doesn't matter. But if I would be a business, and that would be a critical process, to pay, to drive, to send a work order or whatever, that famous time to repair or mid time to recover, MTTR is quite a challenge, and it's money for organization, for us, for people. Okay, fine, I don't have my convenience with me, and then my wife would say, well, if you use cloud, it doesn't happen.
It's funny, but you're making you're making a great point, because in my home setup, right, I run my own DNS server in a sinkhole, right, to just crush stuff, right, because I don't want to see it. Well, when I redeployed my network, when I got fiber into my house, right, I forgot one setting for my to point my new routers to the DNS. Yeah, that was a problem, right? Because I couldn't resolve anything, and now granted, it took me about 30 minutes to go, oh yeah, I got to go fix that one setting there. But if I was a business of any size, right, being down, especially in the information age today, for 30 minutes, right, could have cost me thousands, if not $1 million.
Yes.
Look at the Dyn DNS attack against Amazon back in 2016, right? As an example, right? They lost, I don't know how much money, right, when that whole thing came down for 8 hours because people couldn't, order their stuff on the Zon on the east coast of North America.
Yes, and you raise a good point as well about the configuration of routers, switches. If that just dies, the electronic dies, and you had all your reserved IPs, to rebuild that and guess that's hours. If you have a backup, it's fine, and if it's documented and communicated, which is not something very, very easy to do, after all, keeping track of it. But if you go and you call your provider, and the tech that they send is not obviously the one that did the setup, is gonna have some fun time trying to figure out how the hell that was set up.
Well, and that's why we see, like, with small and mid-sized businesses, right, where they put the router in, they put the Wi-Fi access point in, right, and they turn it on. Everything, somebody comes in, they pay some money, somebody comes in, gets it working, fixed, and everything like that, and then they forget about it. And 5 years later, right, it's still the same Wi-Fi access point that hasn't had that they didn't set for automatic updates of the firmware and stuff like that, right? And boop, somebody's in, right? Boom, they're in the thing through the Wi-Fi access point. Somebody's sitting out in their car, whatever the case may be. This stuff happens, right? Because of that kind of stuff, right? Because again, we too many times, right? We put stuff in. Like, I've got it on my list of things to do over the upcoming holidays, right? To go through and check all my firmware settings, look at my security appliance, make sure I've got the latest updates in there, so I'm blocking everything. I mean, when even at your home network, right, you have to update and upgrade and do all of those things to protect yourself, as just a home user, right? And most people don't realize that. And I'll tell you that just because you have a product that says it's protecting you, right, doesn't necessarily mean that product has very high veracity, right? I.e., maybe it's not as good as you think it is, right? And so those are things to think about, right? We trust a lot. We trust that the thing that I put in with with say a block list or something like that, or a whitelist, is going to work the way it's designed. But most home users, right, most personal people, right, they don't even know how to begin to check that. They put it in line and they hope that it works.
Yeah, who's watching the watcher? I mean, the good old principle of overlapping security controls.
I'll tell you my favorite thing. My two internet service providers ago, I like to fire them apparently. 2 internet service providers ago. I had DSL, and then I went to cable. Now I have fiber. I'm never going back. So that's gonna be like, if I ever have to move anywhere, right? The requirement is I gotta have fiber in my house, right? Because I'm too used to the responsiveness and the speed. But I had DSL, and I somewhere over here, right there, I have the DSL modem because I use it as an example. That was provided by the provider, right? Because, and again, I did my own network off of it, right? When I go look at the thing, right? What does it have open on the back end so the provider can push updates?
Jeez.
Telnet. No kidding. Telnet. That was 5 or 6 years ago now. I was actually more than that. It was like 7 or 8 years ago, right? But the dang thing had Telnet as the port open so that the provider could log in to the thing and do the stuff that it needs to. And I'm like going, you've got to be kidding me. And I know that if I turned off the Telnet port or blocked it on the outbound, guess what? I wouldn't get any updates and I get yelled at by the provider.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is you got to worry about is the data leakage in those things, right? So a lot of them are using other services, right? Mm-hmm. They're sending that data to Sophos and other people to actually analyze, right? And so they ask you to sign off on the privacy of it all, and you may have done that the first day or whatever as a newbie user, and forever your data is going off to who knows where, maybe being aggregated, maybe being disseminated. You don't know unless you read the privacy policy. At the end of the day, there's a lot of leakage on that side as well too.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. And that's the thing. It's the same like we talked about a couple of shows ago, right? It's like IoT devices, right? How do you know that because again, like the convenience. Oh, I will hook up said IoT device through my smartphone. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to do amazing things. I'll be able to check on things from my house. Okay, cool. I'm glad that you can check on things from your house. But from a personal perspective, I know. Yeah, Alex is checking us. That's weird, Alex. You're freaking me out now. But when we think about it, but think about it, right? It's like we assume that the person that wrote the web app that we're connecting to, or the app on our phone that we're connecting to, right? That they baked in security from the beginning, right? And we all know. All of us have done a little bit of agile development stuff. We all know that 9 times out of 10, security gets bolted on at the end because they go, oh, shoot, we should do some security stuff, right? And they want to get the app out into the public as fast as they possibly can. So they spin, and there's an app out there. And Lord knows, what is it doing on the back end? Is the server that it's communicating to secure? You go hit that, you go hit that server in Showdown. What do you find, right? I mean, this is all of those things that like I said, from a personal perspective, right? We trust that the providers of our stuff are doing the right thing, yet we have no real way to verify that.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is why I like the open source side of things, because if you want to check, you can check. You can run some automation tools on that stuff. But for sure, the other ones on the private, the closed source side say, who's going to verify the code? You're never going to check the source code of what you run. Do you compile it yourself? Because after all, you download the binary, it may not match the source code that is actually shared with you. And it's actually most of the time the case, because the channel distribution of the program is adding its logo, tweaking a little bit of things so it matched the Linux distribution or whatever website. And that may introduce vulnerability that you may not see in the source code.
Well, and then the other piece to add on to that, Alex, and I think you're absolutely spot on there, is dependencies. right? Not only do you got to check the source code and do all that stuff, you've got to, if you have dependencies, outlying dependencies out there, you got to check those too, because that's when we think about like broader supply chain stuff. Again, same kind of thing. We trust, right? How many times, right? This is, the time for honesty, folks. How many times have you ran that, that apt get install in your Debian variant and didn't bother to check a damn thing? I'm gonna be the first to tell you, I do that a lot, right? I want to get something working quick and I just need it to go, right? I am not going to spend, a day verifying the source code and dependencies, right? I need something to work now, right? And so again, I'm just as bad, right? But I'm not. But I'll tell you, when I do that stuff, I'm not running on my production systems for work. Right? For work, I'm checking stuff. For personal stuff, maybe, right? But I'm doing it all in the virtual machine, right? I keep it all contained, right? If something blows up in my face, I burn the virtual machine down, right? But how many people just blindly do stuff, on their live, host machine, not a virtual machine, because they just don't know that they should containerize those kinds of things.
And I think that's the key difference, right? And this is where we start kind of getting to ageism and stuff. But in kind of the old days, you had sysadmins who were very, like, the systems were sacrosanct, right? And they made sure they knew what was being loaded, when it was being loaded. They did testing ahead of time, et cetera, et cetera. We're in this kind of push to DevOps to the infinite, where it's just pull everything, right? And the sysadmins have either lost control and power, or the sysadmins have evolved into being bought into the whole agile framework and just rolling with it, right? And DevOps and that kind of whole concept. And so we gotta pull back a bit and get to kind of a happy medium where we can be agile and move quickly, but we're also making sure that we keep security on the forefront of things and not pulling stuff on the fly without knowing what it is, right? Not just upgrade to the latest revision because a latest revision was released, right? So you pull it from Git right away because it's .1 and you were running .0 before. There has to be some kind of thoughtfulness to what we're doing in production. And I think when we talked about the whole concept for this episode was protecting the end users, right? It's like when you, as a production environment, do stuff crappily, for lack of a better word, consumers on the back end of it, they're the ones getting hurt. Yes, you as a company get kicked in the butt a bit, but there's a bunch of consumers, especially if you're in kind of the high consumer business, there's a bunch of people who are paying the price, right? And we're joking. I was joking a bit. I won't say we, about kind of what we saw here in Canada with the TTC getting hacked, and a bunch of employees getting their data on the out in the wild, right? From security and what in the US we'll call what we have is SID numbers. You guys have SSN numbers. At the end of the day, like, really crucial data was released into the wild, so folks can be threatened with identity fraud, et cetera, et cetera. And I was joking. The reason I was joking, not because people were impacted, but in the follow up to it, the company was giving people identity theft protection, but they also released a phone number for support, and the support number happened to be an adult chat line number. So insult to injury, your stuff was released and your company tried to help you, and the number they gave to help you was a different kind of help.
But Rod, what was the number? Just sorry. Just for a purpose of investigation.
For research purposes.
Totally. Yeah, as a research purpose.
but again, right? But I like the story, Rod, because it illustrates, right, how easy it is to do something small, right, and then have a big impact, right? Like one number, right, and one off digit in a URL, right, and you are going someplace or handing over your credentials to somebody that you don't want to, right? And that's what we're running into, down at the user level. I mean, like, I'll give you a practical example. So I'm sure lots of people have Gmail, right? Gmail is an interesting thing, but one of the things that most people don't realize is in Gmail, right, is you can actually separate it out, right? So it puts, it separates out all of your stuff into different folders. You can have actually, let me open up. I'm not going to share my screen, of course.
I don't use Gmail,
you
privacy.
You don't Gmail. Yeah, I know. But it's I got to keep, but again, people use Gmail, right?
Yeah.
People use Gmail, whether for like work stuff or they use it for personal stuff or that kind of thing.
Mail.
Yeah, whatever. So what I like to do with Gmail as an example, right, is I like to take and turn on. So I have everything binned as in the the primary inbox, social, promotions, updates, and forums, right? Because what that does is that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, right? So this is something you can do with your parents and your older friends and stuff like that, right? It's like, look at their Gmail and see if it's configured. You can do it on their phone, you can do it on their laptops and things like that, where you can say, hey, look, only really pay attention to the stuff that comes into your primary. Now we know garbage gets into primary sometimes, right? But so many of those links and the weirdness comes in with social, with promotions, with updates. And if you have it all in one view, right, you as an end user, just Joe or Jane user out there, right, you're gonna go, oh, something popped into my inbox, and you're gonna click on that and stuff like that. It allows you to do some self-filtering, right? Just as a tip out there for folks, if you weren't aware of that, that's something. Ask one of us or one of us like us that and get some help with that. And if you know how to do that, help people
share the knowledge.
Oh yes, share the knowledge, right? Show them this, because that in and of itself, right, takes down a lot of the garbage that people can potentially click on that is a phishing link that steals credentials and then goes to something worse.
And I think that's key. The bad guys work on urgency, right? At the end of the day, they want you to fast click. And the more you think about things before you actually do it, you're in a better situation, right? So Alexander sends me an email saying, I'm stuck in Peru and I'm bleeding badly. I need help now.
I want pictures.
with the llama, and then all this stuff.
That's what they work on. It's grandma's. I mean, yeah. I actually had one in my family. It wasn't even online. It was actually a phone call. Somebody called my son's grandmother saying, your grandson is in jail, right, and needs help. And it was a phone call. And all they do is they do those calls over and over again. They hope to find a grandparent who has a grandson, and right. And then the next step is send me money, or I need it's preying on that urgency and that caring that we all naturally have to try and get you to do something that you would not normally have done, right?
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
And Brad, you were speaking, about these links and URL that people click in email. And there's I saw like a growing trend lately. It's not new, but using the UTF-8 URL encoding to make it look like it's a URL, but in fact it's another character in behind. And I've seen that many time an incident lately. I mean, 3 incidents at least I was on that was used as a technique. So basically they did impersonate the email of the company. They did register a domain with the UTF encoding, so it looked exactly like the original one, sending an email with all the DMARC stuff well configured, so it doesn't go to spam. And then people get it, and it looks like the original one, but it's just the encoding. So basically, it's using like Cyrillic stuff or some other foreign languages. And that's extremely effective because it can go through some spam filters because they do register the stuff properly, and the human are not ready because they believe what they see, and what they see is not what they see. I mean, if you see google.com and you read google.com, but the G is an encoding of something that you don't know about, then you will not see it. You have no way to know that. And that's a trick stuff that I see more and more because it helps people doing impersonation of emails. So what I had faced was a business email compromise. Someone hacked into the CEO Office 365, obviously lack of multi-factor authentication, like no multi-factor. So they guessed the password, or they found it or whatever. And what they did read all the communication, but they did not alter the mailbox. So there was no real activity. And the first mail they did fire was actually from that fake domain to the banker of the organization using the same way the user usually talks. So it was extremely smartly done, like reconnaissance, then doing the copycat domain with that UTF-8 encoding that looks like it, but it's not it. And they've been caught because the banker, when he got the wire transfer requirement, like 150,000, he did reply, and he had in cache the email of the contact, which got automatically corrected.
Oh,
so the CEO got the email from the banker saying, "Hey, are you sure this is about that?" But if they would have fallen on a banker, like an accountant or whoever who didn't have in cache the email, the reply will not have been sent to the right one. And they did take the original signature of the email and they changed the same domain name as it will match the stuff. So that was kind of it's extremely smart. It's very nicely done. It's sad to say, but so we have to be extremely careful on that. We need advanced solution that actually detect, but it's not a bulletproof. I mean, I don't know any solution that will catch 100% of the time a well-prepared scam. And the workaround that is the process of the organization, the workflow that you need to know. Before taking action, use an out-of-band communication, second channel, like confirmed by a phone call, told to people. And nowadays, with technology, and we see so much deception that we must not trust what we see. And we need a human way to use second channel where the second communication is initiated by the other party. So that should stop most of this stuff. Well, and we should not be,
and it's the same thing, Alex, where when we always tell people, right, when I had a great opportunity, 3 or 4 months ago, 5 or 6 months ago now, to actually talk to a group via it's an organization down in Colorado Springs, which is south of where I am, and they work with senior citizens, and it's a group that they get together and they want to learn about stuff, and so they asked me to come talk about cybersecurity and show them some things, right? And it's a really great program, but it's one of those things. It was just for them, it was eye opening because they're like, I don't, and I told them, I said, one of the things I told them was like, your bank is never going to send you an email asking for you to reset your password. And it was like, because it's true. The IRS, right? So, in the United States, right? And the IRS, right? They are not going to call you and tell you that your social security number has been stolen and you're going to go to jail because you owe all these taxes now. That's not going to happen.
And they won't ask for payment in iTunes cards.
Exactly. They're not going to. Again, it's like the simple, basic stuff. They're not going to say, "Hey, I need you to send me the first payment in Amazon gift cards." That is not how any of this works. But again, it goes back to the thing. When we think about personal risk, we think about all of those potential bad things happening out there, right? Sometimes, what's the old adage? Sometimes common sense isn't so common. And Alex and Raji both hit it exactly right. The bad guys, right? Whether they're, big time cyber criminal operators or small time, basically, as far as I'm concerned, to coin a corollary term, a cyber pickpocket, if you will, that low level criminal guy, right? Yeah. They are going to play on that sense of urgency, right? They're gonna find a thing. Again, it goes back to when we think about protecting ourselves personally, right? If you're going to be targeted at a personal level, right, they're going to look at what you're posting on social media. Right. So if you have Facebook, right, or something like that, or LinkedIn, like all of us here have LinkedIn and we post on LinkedIn, right? One, be cognizant of what you're posting on LinkedIn, right? I'm well aware that I put stuff on LinkedIn that I don't put, again, because it's professional, don't really care. It is what it is, right? Colleagues all over the world, amazing stuff. LinkedIn's a great platform, right? But I know, right? I find it funny, like when they say, "Oh, LinkedIn was breached." No, LinkedIn was scraped. Yes. Because LinkedIn, because it's supposed to be a professional network. There's intentional things that are put out there in the public space, right? And if you put anything on social media, consider it public space, end of story. But when we think about like not private social media, but social media for your personal life, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, whatever the case may be, right? Don't care if you got them, super. Don't have a freaking public profile. Right? Because if you have a public profile, right, this is how this stuff happens, right? The reason that the bad guys know that Timmy's grandma, right, probably could fall victim to a scam is because they troll Facebook and they find the stuff and they get the names. That's why when grandma gets the email that says Timmy's in, Peru with Alex on the side of the mountain with the llamas, right? It's because they've looked it up on a public profile. If people would just basically secure some of that public facing stuff,
100%,
right? It would help, right? It would thwart those guys. You want to be a hard target in cyberspace, right? You want your neighbor. This is sad, right? And probably a little callous, but you want your neighbor to be the one that gets pwned, not you.
And the one I use is you come home from vacation and your house is empty because you posted on Facebook all your pictures of vacation. And you told people when you were leaving and when you were coming back.
Yeah, and
you're surprised that something bad happened while you were away.
Yeah, but again, right, and these things, and again, everything that's available in the public space, right? We as humans, right? We do what I like to say is, qualitative risk analysis, on the fly every day, right? We get up in the morning, we look out the window, and we go, there's 6 inches of snow, right? Are the kids going to school today? Are the buses still coming? Am I going to drive to work today in 6 inches of snow? Right. Well, I'm going to think about things. I'm going to say, hey, my car tires, they're great. Yeah, Alex, I know he's driving to work.
We're Canadian.
Yeah, I know exactly. Colorado, man, it's good. Right? Like whatever, snow, But it's like
snow,
but it's like you do some things. You go, yeah, I haven't replaced those tires yet for the winter. They're getting kind of bald, right? Maybe I make a qualitative risk assessment that says, yeah, it's a little risky for me to drive today. I'll telework today. Okay, that's cool, right? We do that as humans all the time with those things in physical space. We need to start doing that the same way and having that same kind of thought process in cyberspace, because there are so many things. We say yes to so many things for the sake of convenience at a personal level that we forget that our convenience is somebody else's product to sell me back data or sell me back information that of something I might be interested in procuring at some point.
Convenience is the antithesis of security. But the one thing I want to touch on beyond that is that when Alexander was talking about reconnaissance, and these aren't folks who are just kind of, well, there are the drive-by folks, there are the pickpockets, etc. But the folks who are really have a lot of caliber, for lack of a better adjective, are the ones who actually do the reconnaissance. And there is a lot going on in the industry right now where they're using that sense of urgency that they've done with the individual users, the grandmas, et cetera, and they're turning those on businesses. So you're about to go public, you're about to do an M&A, you're about to do something big, right? And they know that you are, and they ransomware you. And they turn around, you really want to merge with that company? Well, you need your data, right? Pay us.
Well, there's
you're about
that.
to go public, right? And we're going to shut you down. Pay us. And now you're in a position where you really can't say no.
Well, and I think and you're hitting on something, Rod, the mechanism by which they get hit with the ransomware, right? They've paid attention to all the contracts you're bid on. They've paid attention to all this stuff, right? And when you're expecting to get that DocuSign document, right? And it's the fake one, right?
Or they do that. Yes.
Right. They hit that in, right? And that pops in an hour, right around the time you were thinking you were supposed to get one, right? And then you open it and it goes, oh, you need to, allow these macros to run. And you don't know any better because it says all the right words, contract X for company Y. And this needs to be signed pronto or the deal goes away kind of stuff. Again, that urgency thing again, right? And the next thing you know, you have exposed your entire organization because of something that looked real.
Yeah, or a quick payment to close the deal, or but at the end of the day, they are, as I said, the good guys, the guys who actually have skill are actually doing that reconnaissance. And I talk a lot about the dwell time, right? Which is why when people talk ransomware and I talk backups, I'm like, if somebody's in your network, you put me in your network for 30 days, your backups are pretty much useless.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So talk about preventing ransomware and not about recovering from it with backups, because as I said, dwell time is huge, unless they're the drive-by guys, right? The drive-by guys and girls, the dwell time is small. They're just hoping to get little payments here and there. The guys and girls who are good, they've got backdoors built in. They've compromised your backups. They've done all the things that they want to do so they can get that payment that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten, right? So it's one, don't rely on backups, please, guys and girls. Yes, rely on them for everyday kind of failures. You lost a machine, whatever. But if you're looking at ransomware or somebody compromising your network, don't think your backups haven't been in some way compromised or in some way or shape compromised, right? Whether they're little macros sitting there, little time bombs sitting there, whatever. Those are all the things that I could think of. And I'm not particularly sophisticated. So the sophisticated guys and girls have actually put stuff in there waiting for you to kind of click off on it. And that's why you see these repeat attacks, right? You paid the ransom. Yeah. A month later, well, how'd they get? Well, they were still there.
Yeah. No, they just looked at they just hung out there. Like put a dot in front of that. Put a dot in front of that file on your Linux machine, and you'll never find them.
Yeah.
This is why incident response people speak about root cause analysis.
Yes.
because when you get the root cause, you know where it came from first, and you can actually find IOC, another word, indicator of compromise, which is basically a signature of the attacker, and then you can go through your backups and find the point in time where that stuff appeared, if they left any trace.
They left a trace.
But
yes.
if they achieve persistence, there must be a trace, and that's going to be the one.
100%.
So,
and that's the real fun starts after the ransomware attack. It's finding those back doors. It's finding, as Alexander just said, right? Those points, how they got in, and beyond that, where are they still persistent?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That's tough. It's not. It's not like we're good. All of us on this call are good, but it's not an exact science where you can figure out exactly where there's still so prevention is worth a pound of cure. Find a way to stop them from getting in. Those layers of security. Train your folks. Make sure that they're and yes, there's ways for folks to get around that, but do as much as you can to stop it from happening, because once they're in, if they're good, it's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just going to be there doing what they do. I mean, that's the thing. So one of the things we always talk about with our little discussions is we like to share a tool or two. And
go ahead.
I was doing some research, and this is a really apropos to what we're talking about today, right? You know, one of the things when you again, like I said, at my house, I have a DNS sinkhole, right? So that kills most of the ads. If you want to have, there's the Brave browser is something you could certainly use that helps to do with that kind of stuff. If you really love your Chrome or your Google or your Firefox or Edge or whatever, you know, pick your favorite browser, right? You know, go to the Electronic Freedom, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, EFF, right?
EFF.
And grab Privacy Badger. Privacy Badger is a great tool. It helps to crush a bunch of stuff that you don't need to, right? If you don't want to be as an advanced a setup as like I have with my little DNS sinkhole. If you want to build your own DNS sinkhole and you're feeling frisky, right? It's awesome, right? Google Pi-hole. It's a device you can run on a Raspberry Pi. It'll basically you can build your own DNS server with the automated scripts and everything like that. I've validated, verified, great tool, right? Do you have one of those back there? Yep, there it is, right? Yep, he's gonna put there. Yep, he's gonna show the Raspberry Pi, right? Yep, you can run it on a Raspberry Pi, put a little fan in it, stuff like that. Keep it cool because they might run a little hot when you're doing a whole bunch of DNS traffic. But again, you know, $40 out the door, you know, inflation, right? $40 out the door with a Raspberry Pi, you can build yourself a DNS sinkhole and crush stuff. So it's like when you go to like those news sites, there's no ads. It's awesome. Right, it is totally awesome. Yeah. So it's just something to think about this tool there. But one of the things that we always like to show people is that when you surf the web, right, even with my DNS sinkhole and Privacy Badger inline and everything like that, right, websites, right, your browser is still communicating with websites, and on those websites, right, still trying. There's still different things at the back end of those websites, even without the ads, right? Or even without the ads, right? That show interesting linkages, right? Data sharing amongst websites that you would have never thought of. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So Alex, if you're ready and you want to share that, I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to share screen number 2. There we go. So, there it is. Awesome. So this is really cool. So I have a bunch of browser tabs open here just to generate some traffic. So Alex is winning because we're figuring out how to use StreamYard again without the bumpers because Ron is not here to keep us in line. And so, but what I want to show you here is this. It's a thing here. So Google Lightbeam. And so Lightbeam is a great little piece of tool. I'm going to drop that. I'll drop that here in the chat pod if you want to fly that across the screen, Alex. So there's that is Lightbeam. And so Lightbeam is a browser plugin. You can take it and put it in, put it out. It's available for Chrome and for Firefox. But if I come down here and I open Lightbeam, right? Look at this. This is awesome. Right. This is all of the things that the sites are doing. So if I roll across this is a thing that I pulled. It's called teachcyber.org. It's a really cool site, but this is just some random sites. Here's ESPN. And what's really kind of concerning here is this stuff here. The reds are cookie syncing, right? And so sometimes you'll run across really weird cookie syncing. Like here is a Microsoft cookie sync, right? For something right here, right? So again, things to think about, right? What's interesting is the sites that are out here by themselves, That's first.org, which where the CVSS scoring engine is from. That is
That's cool.
GCHQ's GitHub for CyberChef. And then here's CISA.gov just for fun, right? Here's Amazon.com. There's no connection here, right? But you can see, you get a feel for all of the different things. So when I go to like, here's like Fox News, for example, right? Look at all of these additional things that are potentially tracking you through cyberspace, right? If you got kids, right? And the websites your kids are going to, put this tool on a browser, let them just surf around, do what they normally do, and it will scare the bejeebers out of you, right? Because all of this stuff's right. Hence why I'm a huge proponent of ad blockers, pie holes, stuff like that, because you can crush a bunch of this stuff, right, without having to worry about it, right? Super important, right? We got to we stop the clickbait by using those tools, right? But two, we stop people from tracking stuff that they're not supposed to track. So again, I commend that as a tool for you to check out, right? If you're in the business like us, right, this is a great tool to help educate your users, right? You tell your users, don't click on stuff, right? Find some places, have them click on stuff and show them, this is what happens when you click on stuff. This is why we don't want you clicking on stuff, right? There you go.
This is awesome. And one of the things I do is how do you know your kids have been using your computer if you don't have decent ad blockers, right? So if your kids are young and they're going to, I don't know, American Girl doll, and now you're seeing American Girl doll ads, it's because there's a cookie that's been set and there's a
cookie
profile that's been
Yep,
built.
absolutely, right. It's not magic, it's standards.
It's not exactly. It's not by happenstance. And then the other thing I like to take to do with folks is like, I mean, most news sites right now, like in terms of newspapers, have X amount of articles before they shut you out. Well, how do they figure out that you've got the X amount of articles, right? And so it's getting people to understand that there is this tracking, and the tracking is it's way bigger than any of us really understand, because there's all these third-party brokers. They're selling data back and forth. They're building profiles on all of us as best they can, right?
Yeah.
And beyond just the tracking, there's fingerprinting, right? So the other thing that's neat is, so you think it's a cookie and you switch to private browsing, but it still blocks you. Well, how did it do that? Well, it did it because it fingerprinted your browser and your OS and went, oh, that's still the same user, right? Like that's the type of stuff that is freaking scary, for lack of a better adjective, because that's what they're doing.
And that's how. Absolutely, and that's what happens. Like when you think about like drive-by downloads and clickbait and stuff like that, right? How does the bad guy know, right, what to serve you as far as the executable that's going to do the bad stuff? Checks your browser, right? When you connect out from your computer via your browser, right, it negotiates with the server. The server asks questions of your browser basically and says, hey, what kind of browser are you? What kind of OS are you? This version browser. Okay, so I'm going to serve you the content this way, right?
Yes, your browser cheats on you. Yes, your browser's not your friend.
yeah, exactly. So hey guys, I know not to be Ron here, but we're coming up on our top of the hour, and we try to keep this at an hour. So I would say I think we've had a great conversation tonight. This has been awesome.
No, for sure.
So I'm gonna defer for a second. So Alex, Rod, do you guys have like some closing thoughts? I'm gonna go put my tinfoil hat on here in a little bit, but any closing thoughts that we want to add?
Scary part. The tinfoil hat piece is the scary part. Everybody kind of, when I talk to friends and family, they're all like, well, you're the guy you're the paranoid tinfoil guy, and I'm trying to find different ways to communicate, to get it across so people understand that yes, you can be extreme on the tinfoil side, but in reality, day to day right now is dangerous for your privacy, and I think we all have to find a better way of communicating so that folks don't think that you're the extreme guy with a bunker in the forest. That there are things that are really affecting their lives, and you are being tracked. And in some ways, some millennials, I do a lot of mentorship, but a lot of millennials are like, okay, I might get my identity stolen at some point in time, and there's this nonchalantness to it. But I'm hoping we can awaken people to why they should care about it and why they should hold these companies accountable.
Speaking of tinfoil hat, I don't know if you saw the news. I'm going to close on that. The new 5G technology coming out, and it comes with power beam out of the network, and new devices are able to pull energy research surge from the wireless network. And so we need a tinfoil hat right now because our brain is going to be microwave large scale. Oh boy, I'm now in the crazy theory. But if you didn't see the news, look at 5G remote charging through power beam over waves, radio waves.
RF,
That's crazy impressive and scary. And I think we are now entering the Terminator era, and everybody should watch Terminator 2 just to get a quick reminder that we are actually pouring Skynet on, and we will not be able to stop it. So that will be my closing word for today.
I like it. The Brits built Skynet already. It's their military satellite communication system. Just saying. We've had Skynet for a while. I don't even know why they even called it Skynet, because they should have thought, because the movie came out before it became a thing. But to sort of put a bow on this, right? For folks out there, hopefully you've enjoyed our conversations tonight. I always enjoy talking with Alex and Rod. It's always a good thing. There's always insightful things here. But please, right? Do that risk assessment. Think about, think about what you're signing up for. Should you sign up for it? Why you're signing up for it, right? And just do that risk analysis, right? And understand that when you sign that, end user license agreement, the ULO or the SLA or whatever the agreement is to use a service for something, right? You are choosing, right? Again, risk-based analysis, please, right? You are choosing to give something away, right? And we just, if more people realize that, right? Maybe less people would do it, and then we would all be more secure. So.
Do I really need that?
Yep.
Yes.
Ask the question. Ask the question. Absolutely.
Needs versus wants. Needs versus wants. Yes.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. It was a great conversation.
Thanks, guys.
I look forward to
we did it,
and I look forward to the Christmas edition. We'll have to come up with
we have to schedule something.
Cybersecurity stories.
Yep. Was nice to see you guys. Was nice to see you people. I hope you enjoyed. And we're gonna close up now.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks to the folks in the comments.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Rod.
Take care, guys.
Bye.